Everyone, and welcome to our webinar session. I hope you're all having an amazing day today. I hope things are going your way. We're going to get started right here on time because I am so happy that you're here and I am excited about this topic. So for those of you who don't know me, today we're going to cover the Agile SuperPower, maybe unlocking your superpower, figuring out how to engage and how to get things going in this new thing that we call normal, yes? So without any further ado, let's get started. So for those of you who've never met me personally before, this is me. I always try to update the profile picture because I think, who knows, right? There's always something good out there. But I hate talking about myself in a sense that, I hold these merit badges or this is what I do. But I love to come out and just say, hey, I believe there's a better way to do things. I believe there's a different way to do things. And my hope is that today I can share some of that insight, some of that impact with you so that we can collaborate together and figure out ways that could help you accelerate learning or could help you really build on what's going on within your organization. So in order to do that, one of the things that we do as a company at AgileDad is we do something that's called Giving Back Series. And the Giving Back Series is part of AgileDad University. And the way that it works is we host webinars like this one. And we have several coming up. So I thought I'd give you a little preview of some of the free things that are coming up. So if you have friends or coworkers or others who are interested in these topics, it'll be a real good way for you to engage and show them what's going on. So here's your preview. So some of the free webinars coming up. Of course, today's the Agile SuperPower. Next week, we have our team and program roles, both are really necessary and safe. So it's a safe presentation that's going to be given by Jacob Anderson. We have a talk about Agile certifications and did it really make a difference? That's going to be interesting. Debunking the use of weighted shortest job first. And then we'll wrap up in April with the importance of limiting WIP in Agile. So those are the topics that you can see on the horizon. And of course, we have a lot of upcoming virtual courses. Now, I know I've received some inquiries from some folks about a couple of things, so I want to get those out of the way real quick too. The first is, are we doing in-person courses? The answer is yes in a private setting right now. What we found is just there's not a lot of interest in a public setting, and if there is, change my mind, right? But for organizations, we've been going in fact, I just flew in yesterday. So we are doing these workshops in a private setting. So if you or your organization wants to do a workshop and wants to do it live and in person, we're certainly all backed up and ready to go, right? So we would love to do that. The second question I've been getting a lot lately is, are we offering the different levels of courses? And the answer is yes. We're offering the level 1 certifications and the level 2 certifications. We're offering lots of new SAFE certifications. So there's a lot going on. So we hope that you can find something that you'd be comfortable with. One more tool before we get started. Many people ask if these workshops or these sessions are being recorded. And the answer is yes. And the reason why we're doing that is so we can provide this later as a tool on AgileDad University. So that way, if you like the content and recording, you can have someone go back and grab it, right? The other thing that we do is we host a free daily stand-up podcast. Now, a lot of people may not know this podcast exists, but it's every single day, just like a stand-up. It's always 15 minutes or less. There's over 500 episodes published. There's all kinds of Agile topics. So you can choose which Agile topic you're looking for and dig in there. And I guarantee you there's going to be something. And even if you don't want to hear my voice, we have an Agile expert series. So if you go to the Agile Dad page, for example, on the podcast page, and you search for, Mike Cohn, you'll find a series of podcast episodes where he was a guest presenter and some where we review some of the articles that he put together. So there's lots of cool things that you can go and get there as far as tools are concerned. And as far as where to find it, oh my goodness, it's available everywhere, right? It's probably one of the most widely broadcast podcasts within the Agile workspace. So if you have any of these different ways, any of these different methods of listening, we invite you to come and join us. It's really been an awesome ride. And of course, we also publish on the AgileDad website previous webinars. So far for this series, Jacob did the first one, and it was on SAFE, a SAFE more than a checklist. And that one happened on February 10th, but the recording of that webinar is available now on the AgileDad website under the AgileDad University series page. And right now, with everything still being kind of wacky, everything in AgileDad University is being offered for free. So it's just a good reference point for you. I wanted to get that out of the way and let you know where to go to get stuff. Okay, now that we got past that, I dedicated 3 minutes to it. I figured that's probably appropriate. Let's spend the rest of this 57 minutes really hammering in on the main topic. So I want to take you on a journey. The journey begins pre-COVID. So we're in a pre-COVID world. So I want you to just picture where you are. You're in a pre-COVID world and you're in the office. And life in the office is pretty good, right? Life in the office is pretty good. Things are happening. People are busy doing work. People are scrambling back and forth. Things are going your way. Now, whether it's a big office, a large office, a small office, doesn't matter. You're just used to doing things a certain way, yes? And we establish something that we call our typical workday. So our typical workday, has different, how shall I put this? It has a different way of happening based on which constituent is viewing the workday. What I mean by that is the workday, according to us, is different than the workday according to our direct reporting supervisor, is different than the workday that an executive would see it, right? So it's almost like I want to take you on a journey for a mile in their shoes, right? So I want you to put their shoes on for a moment so that you can see what's happening in the workplace. So coming from a leadership view, they are pretty confident in their teams and their capabilities in most cases. They're pretty confident that work's getting done. How do they know? Because their hand is in control. They see the schedule. They see how many people are in the office. They see the parking lot is full. They know that work's getting completed. So they're in a good state, right? They have a clear vision of what they want to do. And I want you to keep in mind, I put circa 2019 on here for a reason, because many companies at that point also are trying to have a 5-year plan, right? We're going to plan what we're going to do for the next 5 years or 3 years. And I can already see and hear the laughter in the background, right? Because no one put COVID on their 5-year plan, right? So all these organizations had all these grandeur plans of all the things they wanted to do. But I think there's a valuable lesson to be learned here, that with the 5-year plan, yes, I always say, even before COVID, I used to say 5-year plans are pretty much pie in the sky. It's good to have some type of high level vision, but I don't know that I'd lay it out in a 5-year plan. Yes. So with that being said, I think that they started to get a vision of what they wanted to do. And they knew that if they could see it, they could manage it. So it was something that was easy for them to manage, something that was easy for them to get their head around. And, they started to just really dedicate their focus towards future success, where we're headed, what's going. We've got all the right people in place. We know our deliverables. Let's just punch through. Our pathway to success is crystal clear. Yes? So let's look at it from the other perspective. So now you're a team member and you're on the ground. And the good news is many organizations at this point were ready to embrace Agile. They were ready to embrace Agile framework. They were ready to learn about it. They were ready to stick their toe in the water. Not everybody dove right in, but there was a lot of movement in the Agile workspace, and it was exciting. It was exhilarating. We saw lots of people doing many great things. But what happens is when we're seeking continuous improvement, teams begin to gain trust in each other, and they begin to gain trust in the stakeholders, and the work tends to be more clear. The organization starts focusing more on impact and outcome of what we're building instead of just counting shekels and counting output. We have greater confidence in the work that we've completed. It's higher quality. It's getting released faster. We've opened up a feedback loop. Many organizations started really digging in and focusing on diversity and inclusion and getting the right workforce together to do the job. Lots of good things were starting to set in, right? I mean, even work-life balance. I remember organizations that had all of these different amenities and things for their teams so that their teams, when they were in the office, could have a little more comfort, right? So we're starting to see some of these creature comfort things built into organizations, lots of snack residences and lots of exercise rooms and lots of prayer rooms and things. And it was just really cool because we saw that organizations were really starting to understand how important people were. I would say we were on a good path, right? We were on a good track. We were tracking towards success. Then something happened. I'm sure you all could probably guess what happened. It was COVID. So in December 2019, our world dramatically changed. Everything about us, and it doesn't matter where in the world you're from, everything changed in December, right? So in December 2019, we had a new normal. And I hate to even bring it up, but the new normal looks something like this. People who were going to work, or people who were going anywhere, were getting temperature scans. We were wearing masks. We were doing all these things. And I'm not saying it was a good or bad idea. What I'm saying is what we saw and what was happening, it forced us to reinvent or recreate what we needed to do in order to achieve work. Now, this was a pretty significant swing for a lot of leaders and a lot of executives trying to figure out what's going on and what's happening. So for us as the worker, because that's where we're focused just a moment ago. So for us, working from home was a perfect world. It was a perfect blend of everything that we needed. I mean, there was no commute to the office. We had flexible work hours. We could save money on meals because we could eat right at home. We saved money on fuel because we didn't have to drive places, whether it was electric or gas. We had more time to spend with our family and friends because everyone was around, even our fur babies. I mean, everybody was there. We had less need or desire to be social or socially awkward with other people. Life was great. We thought this was the epiphany. This is what we all wish for. I mean, it was like an eternal weekend with some work included, right? But that's not exactly how it really was. But when it first happened, we looked at this as our golden opportunity, right? And what we quickly discovered is that things changed as soon as we understood the leadership's point of view. So this next small introduction is a little bit shocking. I'll say that now. But I think you're all going to be able to nod your head and say, I see where this is going, right? So I'm just trying to establish a path before I share the tools. So here it is. So from a leadership perspective, they all said, what happened to my productivity? What happened to all the things that I was expecting and all the things that I saw? Productivity for a lot of organizations started to dip. And I think part of this was just because of the way people were managing a work-life balance while working at home or working part-time in an office, right? People weren't used to doing that, so there needed to be some adjustments. Leadership then became heavily concerned about what was happening because they wanted to have more control. They started to ask the question, am I getting what I'm paying for? Are people actually delivering the products and services that are high quality and the things that I expect them to deliver? And some of those bad organizational and management habits that were broken before started to creep their way back in. Some of those command and control, rule with an iron fist, some of those things really came in. And it was interesting because a lot of good people started to either leave and go for other positions, or things started to change in the workforce. So what we noticed, and I'm going to use a quote. So one of my executive admin for Agile Dad, she also does full-time recruiting. And she told me, she says, it's really interesting, Lee. She says, right now we have 16 open positions. That's 16. So you have 16 open positions. And of those 16 open positions, are you ready for this? She has 1,000 applicants. 1,000. So there's 1,000 people all fighting for 16 positions. To me, that just blows my mind, right? How can 1,000 people all try to get the same job? Now, for the person who's searching for the job, it makes it deafening. It makes it very difficult because you have to find a way to separate yourself from everybody else, right? But now let's put it in the mind of the leadership, the people who are doing the hiring for the organization. They have turned this into something that was almost a weapon, which is a nightmare to me. And I'm not saying every organization has done this, but many organizations have said, I now have a global marketplace for people who work for me, where before I could only select talent from a very limited area. Now I can select talent from anywhere because we're all working from home. So now the competitiveness and the way that you could set yourself apart became crucial because now I could either offer lower salaries, I could set the expectations higher for who I wanted, or I could choose anyone anywhere in the world to do the job. So, and this is ugly, but it made people more dispensable, and it was frustrating. So in an effort to adjust, leaders were ushered into this era of discomfort where they didn't know exactly what normal would be, and they didn't know how long this would last. I mean, at first it was, this is just going to be a short time thing. We'll get a vaccine. We'll be good to go. We'll be back in the office in no time. But when they quickly started to realize that this was escalating and that it was turning into something that was going to be a long-term deal, that it wasn't just a short-term thing, then people were looking for ways to get better control of their products or their projects. And in essence, it forced us, the workers, to have to work a lot harder. So we decided we were going to work harder. So while we thought working from home was going to be this joyous, set us apart from all the things that are happening in our lives, what we really faced was our workday looked more like this, right? So we had to balance and juggle all these different things. And I'm going to point out that this information that you see on this slide was drawn from a survey. So the team at AgileDad surveyed. We surveyed about 1,500 people, so 1,500 people. And we were talking about working from home. And we asked them some questions. And the one question that stood out was, tell me one thing about your reality of working from home and how it's different from what you perceived it would be. And these are the top answers that we got. So I thought I'd throw these in here because they're interesting. So the first one says, my workday begins way earlier than it ever did, and it ends later. People aren't putting in 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day. I've heard of people putting in 12 hours a day. They break up in the middle of the day with a 2-hour Costco trip or a 2-hour run around a block or a bike ride or whatever. And then they'll come back and they'll work for another 3 hours. I mean, it's just ridiculous the amount of time that people are putting in. And people are getting a lot less sleep as a result, right? So they're not spending time doing the things that they need to do, right? So they're not spending time doing the things they need to do to optimize their workspace. What they're doing instead is just pouring more time into it. The days have become completely filled with meetings. I had one guy, he cracked me up. He says, I think I've discovered the key to being a perfect Scrum Master. I said, what's that? He says, I need to attend 19 daily stand-ups a day. He says, if I attend 19 daily stand-ups a day, I don't have to do anything else, and I could be the perfect Scrum. I was like, oh my goodness. Right? But the thing is, he was half serious. He says, I think every single day I get called into every meeting that has ever existed. If there was a meeting, I'm in it, right? And I'm just like, man, that's brutal. But our active communication with each other diminishes, and we start using tools, Slack, other tools, Teams, etc. And we start talking through these tools instead of, communicating directly with one another. And it breaks down our ability to build trust and to do the things that we need to do. Yes. So it stops us from having this, it creates this chasm. So now the question becomes, okay, we have all this work that needs to be done, active communication is broken down. How do we gain control, right? Because the truth is, interruptions are plentiful. Interruptions are all over the place, right? So we've got spouse, partner, children, fur babies, you name it. There's always something going on. There's always something in play that's causing us to not be able to be productive. And that's the real life. So I don't think we ever took into consideration the fact that if we were being asked to work from home, that maybe our spouse or significant other was being asked to work from home, that our kids weren't going to be at school, that our pets were still going to need to go out for walks, et cetera, and use the restroom. We didn't take all these other things that happen all day long into consideration because, after all, we were never there. So what we found out is that this new normal came with an entirely new set of challenges. So the question, and this is what the whole thing is about, is if that's all true, how do we achieve work-life balance? How do we get to the point where we are balancing what we're doing and we understand the importance of having work-life balance? And I think the key is, how do we learn to work smarter and not harder? How do we get to the point where we're addressing these concerns? Because now we've identified them, we know what we're looking for. How do we address the concerns now that we're there? Yes? So with that being said, I thought it'd be good to dive a little deeper. So let's dive a little deeper. And this is the part where it gets fun. So now we've set the stage, right? So the stage is set. We know what we're talking about. This is where it gets interesting. So I want to take a minute to talk about work-life balance and to talk about how we can identify the superpowers. Now, the superpowers, I call them Agile SuperPowers because they're applicable in Agile. But I decided after that I kind of misnamed this. I wanted to call it just the 6 superpowers because these superpowers aren't just applicable in Agile, they're applicable in life. And I had a lot of people ask me, why 6? I had some logic behind this. And I hope I have at least a few Marvel fans in the room, because when I put these 6 together, it's going to make a lot more sense to you. So here we go. So let's talk about these 6 superpowers, and I think it's going to catch you by surprise. Ready? Here are the 6 superpowers. We need to understand the gauntlet in order to understand the 6 superpowers, right? So my hope is that as a Marvel enthusiast, the MCU is so valuable to me, that I thought it'd be fun to tie together the 6 Infinity Stones to the 6 superpowers that are going to help you achieve mindful work-life balance, right? So I wanted to give you a tool that you could use and something that would make it easy to remember. So I don't know how many of you saw the movie Infinity War or know about the Infinity Stones or know about Thanos and what happened. But if you haven't, I encourage you to see the movies. I encourage you to learn more about it, because I'm about to show you how these Infinity Stones tie into your life and how they tie into things that you're doing both at work and at home. So this is going to be a real good way for you to tie things together. So let's start with the first stone. Now, somebody did ask. The answer is yes, I did do them in the order that Thanos collected them. So here we go. So if you remember stone number one was the Power Stone. And when I'm talking about the Power Stone, how does that apply to you? The truth is, the Power Stone is the foundation for which everything else is built on. So the Power Stone really was the foundational piece of the puzzle for Thanos. And, you know, it does a lot of things in the movies that maybe you couldn't do in real life. But applying it to a real life situation, you could say that if I am leveraging the Power Stone, I'm setting aside time, right? I'm blocking out time. I'm setting a time box, and I'm blocking out time to identify my personal strengths and talents. I'm looking for things that I'm good at. I'm looking for things that I can share. I'm looking for things that I can push forward. I'm looking for things that I can advance so that I can then leverage that to help others. And in turn, I'm going to learn the strengths of others so that I can learn what they're good at, so that if there's something that they're good at or proficient at that I might need assistance with, I can have that communication line open, right? Because I think sometimes we don't take the time to figure out our strengths and other strengths. And thereby, we're not ever able to empower others to do part of the job, a part of the things that we need them to do. And we put all that burden or pressure on ourselves. So I think one of the key here is to also, once you understand the strengths, to empower others so that they can really do their jobs better and uplift them. And I think the last one is interesting. I put continue to build muscle mass. And what I mean by that is the only way you're ever going to get stronger is if you work and use your powers. So it's one of those things about if you have a talent, you don't use it, you lose it. It's the same exact thing. If you're not working out those muscles and breaking them down, they're never going to get bigger and stronger. So just like a physical muscle, this is something that you have to apply. It's something that you have to do. You're not going to get more powerful. You're not going to gain more strength if you don't exercise the muscles and talents that you have. So with that being said, I feel like it's important not just to build on physical strength, which I do think that's important. I mean, I'm sitting with the echelon behind me, right? So physical strength is incredibly important. It helps you build endurance. It helps you be a stronger person. It helps you live longer, and it helps you have a clear mind, right? But I want to talk a little bit about emotional strength. I think that sometimes someone just needs to hear your words. Sometimes people live to hear what you have to say, and they live for communication. We are all social creatures. And even if we're antisocial, we still need some communication in order to exist, even if it's with the Amazon driver. My point is, we need to figure out ways to live emotionally in a way that we're strengthening ourselves emotionally. And the last one that I brought up was spiritual strength. And the reason I brought that up is because regardless of which organized or unorganized religious background you come from, you need to have some type of belief system in place that helps you stay grounded. Because if you're not grounded, this is really just going to fall apart and you won't understand how power works. It's almost like, I'm going to pull from another Marvel character, well, Marvel Sony. It's almost like what Spider-Man learned. With great power comes great responsibility. And I think that we underestimate the Power Stone and that we don't leverage it enough, and that a lot of people try to do the other stones without having the Power Stone in place. And there's a deficiency. That foundation's not there for the rest to work. Okay, I see all of you did a Google search to see what the second stone was. The second stone was the Space Stone. So the Space Stone, if you remember, it gave people the power to teleport to alternate dimensions or create a wormhole to do what they needed to do, right? And the truth is, that might be out of your control. But controlling your personal and professional workspace isn't out of your control. So let me explain. One of the things that I had to do in working from home, and I wish I could show you the whole room because it's really, really cool, is I transformed what was a small living room into a library just before COVID. And then I took this library and transitioned it into a working office. Now, I know that's not, amazing, but what we did is we made it to where I had all the area that I needed to do the things that I needed to do in order to help me be productive, and identified ways and things and tools and colors and the whole nine yards, things that I enjoy seeing, to create an environment where I really felt good about working in this environment. So I created a dedicated workspace. But the other key that I did, and this is something that's out of frame, I apologize, is at the doorway, I put a distinct difference in flooring between the flooring in this room and the flooring outside of this room. And I know it sounds silly and small, but what it did is it created a visual representation that this is my workspace. I made sure it was bright with 2 big windows. I have a really amazing ceiling fan that I can control from my phone. I've got an exercise bike in here so that if I want to get up and exercise, I can. It's a perfect environment for me. And I even organized it in such a way that it made sense to me in my mind how it flowed, because I think that's important. So I created a zone specifically where I felt like I could do really strong work, and that helps. The second thing I did was I filled it with the right tools, and we kind of went through that, right? I picked the things that were appropriate and good for me to help me be inspired, to help me be uplifted, and I didn't surround myself with things that would distract me. So I took anything that would distract me and tucked it away, and I ingrained in myself, hey, I need to make sure I have the right tools. The third thing I did was I recognized that sometimes, even though this space is perfect, it's not the right space. Sometimes I need to be outside. Sometimes I need to be in a different room. Sometimes I need to change my setting. And that's important because I think sometimes we don't leverage a new space when we need to. And it creates a deficiency. So if there's a better space for you, people crack up when I tell them one of the places I work the best is in the kitchen. So I'll go into the kitchen because I'm a creator. I'm that kind of person. So for me, in the kitchen, it's a safe zone for me. So if I'm ever losing clarity, or I feel like I'm cloudy, or I feel like I need to get some leverage, I'll just head over to the kitchen and I get the leverage that I need. And I think the last one, the bullet point here, is probably the most important. You need to invent or create ways that you can connect to the space that you're in. So find things that connect you. For me, I have different artifacts. I've got something very special to me. I have a lanyard from Harry Potter. That's right over here. And it sounds silly, but my Ravenclaw lanyard is something that's special to me, right? So it's something that reminds me of an amazing training that I had. And it's also something that reminds me of some good friends. So I keep this close by because, hey, it's just something that helps me connect to the space. On the shelf, I have several Disney artifacts. Similar story, right? I try to find ways that I can connect myself, both physically and through a memory, to the space that I'm working in. And I find that helps quite a bit. And that's stone number 2, the space stone. If you remember stone number 3, it was the reality stone. The reality stone is an interesting one. It gave the power to alter reality. Now, I hear many people say, oh, we can't alter reality. We can't change reality. And my answer is, sure you can. You can change reality, and I can prove it, right? So a lot of times I do exercises with folks just to show them that little things that you do can help you better live in the present. So I want to say it one more time. Little things that you do can help you live in the present. And what I mean by that is sometimes we're so focused on what's happening tomorrow or what happened yesterday. Oh my goodness, yesterday I had the worst day. And we live dwelling in that day. Or, oh my goodness, I have this presentation I got to give in 2 hours, or tomorrow, or the next day, or next week. And we're so ingrained in living in the past or in the future that we oftentimes miss out on things that are in the present, right? So part of that is just to be transparent and to figure out where you are now. What are you doing now? And you need to adjust and pivot as needed to understand that once we know where we are, and once we know it's not the right place, we need to be willing and free to pivot and adjust and align so that we can be in a better place, so that we can continue to learn and grow. And I think that's so important, because I think sometimes we take this one for granted, right? We always, and I'm not saying don't be mindful and set goals, but what I am saying is focusing on what you're doing now and getting things done is going to allow you to not context switch as often. It's going to help you stay eyes on the prize in reality. And it's going to help you gain better control of what's happening through use of presence, being present when you need to be with the team, with the organization, with the leadership. You need to be present to make Agile work. You need to be present to make life work. And stance. Sometimes you need to take a specific stance walking into something. And you need to stand up for what your belief system is. You need to stand up for what's important to you. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss. The fourth stone out of 6. The fourth stone is the soul stone. So this one was probably one of the two that was most emotional for me in the Marvel series, right? The soul stone is the part where it measures how you measure your life. That's the easiest way for me to describe it, right? It allows you to manipulate life and death in the movies. But with this being said, I often challenge people, and this is an interesting challenge. I ask, are you spiritually grounded? And I'm not talking about specific faith. I'm just asking, are you spiritually grounded? Do you have something that you believe in? And that could be family, it could be a faith, it could be anything. But do you understand, and do you have something that you put credence in that helps you, whether it's just, good karma? A lot of times when this is kind of funny. A lot of times when I go to the grocery store or Walmart even, right? If I'm pulling up and down the aisles and I notice the very first space open, I won't park there. Not because it's handicapped, obviously, but I'm talking about a row with non-handicapped. I won't park there. And people are just like, why don't we park there? I'm like, I don't know if I want to cash in all those karma points to park in that first spot. And people laugh when I say it, but it's true. I really believe that we have an account, like a checking account, and you can do deposits and withdrawals, and you don't want to withdraw more than you deposit. So I always look for ways to give back, and so I can rack up a balance, but then I don't want to cash them all in on just taking that first spot. There's somebody else who probably needs that spot more than I do, and I don't mind to walk. There you go. So this is what the soul stone is about. It's about renewing a focus on kindness. Now, I'm saying this delicately because I know there's a lot of things in the world today that are happening that are the exact opposite of kindness. So I think it's important for us to find ways to be kind to one another, to find ways to show love and compassion to one another. And, I often say that it doesn't matter what your background is, what your ethnicity is, who you love, who you care for, which political party you affiliate with. None of that should matter. We should all just look at people and have faith in their ability to do good. Right? People and their enthusiasm are a precious commodity, and we don't rate it as such. We need to start doing that. So if we can renew our focus on kindness and start treating people with dignity and respect and having faith in the things they do, what's going to happen is it's going to give us an opportunity to lose ourselves in serving others. And when we do that, that's when we're going to realize how to dig deep and discover who we really are. Because the truth is, in order for you to help others get their house in order, it's probably a good idea for you to have your house in order. So this is the one that forces us to introspect before we retrospect. Good call, right? Okay. 5th stone. Let's do it. The 5th stone is the time stone. So I'm going to argue, and many may disagree, I'm going to argue that this stone is the most important stone. The reason why I say it's the most important stone is because this is the one that gives you the ability, or I should say this is the one that you can never get back once you spend it. This is the one that you only get a certain allotted amount of, and once it's gone, right? And there's no way to turn back time. Cher couldn't even do it. She begged, if I could turn back time. I knew you were waiting for me to sing. You knew it was coming at some point, right? But the point I'm trying to make here is if we set clear working hours and tell ourselves, this is the schedule I'm going to work. I'm not going to work all day and all night. I'm not going to work outside of those hours. I mean, if I have to answer a quick message or something, I might squeak that in, but I really try hard to be disciplined and say, once it's after a certain time, I'm done. And it amazes people because I really believe I'm more successful because I do that. A lot of my competitors and a lot of other organizations, they'll get back to you within an hour of whenever you ping them, and that's great, but it wears you down and it doesn't allow you to perform at an optimum level. So I set clear working hours, but at the same time, get this, I schedule family time. I go out on daddy-daughter dates. I go out with my sons. I take my wife out and do things. I think it's so critical and so important for us to schedule time to do things and take time for vacation. Don't just let it waste. Go somewhere and do something. And even if you say, but it's a pandemic, you can do a staycation. You can find time to watch some Marvel movies. Or you can find time to watch other movies if you don't like Marvel. But my point is, this gives you something that you can say, I have set aside and dedicated time because I don't want my whole life to be built around work. The truth is, no one ever dies and says, boy, I wish I would have spent time in one more meeting, or I wish I would have spent time working harder. Nobody ever says that, right? They always say, I wish I would have had more time with my family and friends. So food for thought. And this is my favorite one. Reserve a day. For me, that day is Sunday. I'm a spiritual person. It's a Sabbath day for me. I reserve that day. I have had people offer me, get this, $10,000 to work on a Sunday, organizations, and I won't do it. And people think it's nuts. Like, it's just a day. You can go back to your faith or whatever later. The point is, it's not me breaking away. It's just I value that downtime. I value that day of rest. And it's easy. It's become so easy for me to say no when people ask me to work on a weekend. It's like, I just don't do it. And people understand, and a lot of times people take a step back and I respect it because they're not expecting it. You know, they're expecting you to scrape every penny, but it's something that when you do it correctly, it shows people that you're powerful, not that you're weak. Interesting. Last one I put, and this is my favorite one, become a time box beast. I time box everything, right? And almost to the point where it's annoying. But I do it for good. I do it for good cause. I do it for good reason, because I think sometimes we get into meetings, or we get on a Zoom call, or we get on a Teams call, or whatever the case may be, and we end up in this conversation, and it spins off into another one, and before you know it, you know, your partner, significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever's coming in, well, I got dinner. Well, I'll be done in a little bit, and it just piggybacks and piggybacks, and it rolls into the snowball, and it becomes a nightmare, right? You can control your time. However, in order to leverage this power, it takes discipline. You need to be comfortable telling people no. You need to be comfortable accepting a consequence of telling people no, right? Here's my thought of the day. If someone asks you to do something on your down day and you say no and they fire you, you're all better for it because you weren't supposed to be there doing that, right? So if someone doesn't respect you for you allocating and blocking out time, I've got a different issue. Now, I want to close with one thought. The first one, set clear working hours. When I say I'm going to be available and I say I'm going to do something, I'm there. And I'm available and I do what I say I'm going to do. But when I shut down also. So my point is, if you say you're going to do something, you've got to follow through. You've got to do what you say you're going to do. And that's what builds the trust. Because I know that if you say, I'm not going to work on Sunday, but I'll have it done during Monday through Friday, I'm good with that, right? As long as you live up to that expectation. You shouldn't have to force yourself to work a weekend to do something. Now, are there exceptions? Of course. You know, there's an occasional, hey, can you give us one day to come do something? You know, absolutely. But don't let it be your reserve day. Okay. That leaves us with the sixth stone. We're doing good on time. So the sixth stone is the mind stone. If you watched a movie, this is the one that made me cry the hardest. This was so hard to watch, right? Taking a stone from Vision was probably one of the most cruel things I could have ever seen. The Mind Stone is ultimately the most powerful gift and tool that we have. The Mind Stone is the piece that's the source of all of our knowledge. It's the source of all of our feeling. It's the source of all of our emotion. It's the source of who we are. And I think that sometimes we underestimate the power of the mind's eye. We don't take into consideration that the Mind Stone is the piece that helps us control how we feel. So I often tell my kids, if they ever make the mistake of saying, so-and-so made me feel this way, or this event makes me feel this way, or stop talking about that, it hurts my feelings. My answer is, it's not me doing that. You're choosing to feel that way. You're choosing to react that way. You can choose to give me an altering view. You can choose to leave the room. You can choose to do all kinds of things. But if you choose to stay and listen, then you're choosing to feel the way that you're choosing, which is interesting. But I also want to point out that that doesn't give you a license to bully, right? So if you're going to implement controlling how you feel, and understanding how you feel emotionally, and setting a standard so that other people could say, hey, someone that made me feel this way, this is just how I feel. It's important for you to understand where the boundaries are and for you to be able to emotionally attach, whether it's to, I need to invest this time and attach to my team so that we can make the right solution, or whether it's I need to invest this time in my spouse or partner so that we can have a better relationship together. It's important for you to control your feelings, to not let your emotions run away with you, and to invest that time accordingly. The second one talks about choose good, better, or best. Now, this is interesting. I often hear people say, I don't have time to do something, or if they do have time, they say, hey, I use my time wisely. I chose this one thing that I thought I should do. And this happens a lot in Agile teams when I go and do coaching. They're like, yeah, we chose to do this. Isn't that good? And I'm like, yeah, it's perfectly good. I can think of 10 things that would have been better to do. And out of those 10, I could pick the one that would have been best for you to do. And it wouldn't have been the one that you did. So I think part of the Mind Stone is understanding that it's not a battle between choosing good or evil or good or bad. I think sometimes the battle is choosing between whether I'm going to invest in the good things, the better things, or the best things, right? And sometimes it's hard to lock in the best and say, these are the best and that's what I'm going to do. So sometimes that's hard. So we need to identify good, better, or best, and we need to make sure we're focused on the best things if possible. Now, sometimes we'll miss, but it's okay. As long as you're doing a good thing, it adds value. Yes? The next one talks about setting mindful goals. So obviously with the Mind Stone, mindful goals are important, right? And I think that mindful goals means that you're not just setting a goal, but you're setting a goal for a reason, right? And I think sometimes we set goals, but we don't necessarily think about the why behind the what. Boy, that sounds familiar. That's work related. So it's understanding that it's good to set goals and that's important, but it's also understanding that the why behind the what is important when we set those goals. And with that, I often instill something called the GROW mindset, and it is supposed to be grow, not growth. Let me explain. So GROW is an acronym. Oftentimes I'll ask people, if you're applying your mind to this and you're trying to set a meaningful goal, my question is, what is that goal? Right? And I have people verbalize that goal because that's important. I'm like, okay, what's our reality? How far away are we from that goal? How big is this chasm that we're trying to cross? And then I ask, what are our options or opportunities? Are there options or opportunities out there that we can take advantage of? Are there things that we can leverage to help understand or to help give some options that'll help us further ourselves to getting towards that goal? And then finally, what will we commit to do today? And I think that sometimes we don't take advantage of that piece of it. We don't commit to doing the big picture. And I think that that's important. We need to commit to doing those things. And we need to at least commit to doing one thing. Because if we commit to doing one thing, it sets a pattern for us to commit to do the next thing. And I think that that's a big piece of this. But I rounded this one out with always show gratitude. And this is something that a lot of people forget to do. One of the things that one of my coaches, so I have a social media coach who helps me with a lot of the social media engagement. And one of the things that she taught me, the wondrous Vendy, one of the things she taught me is that you should always do a gratitude journal. You should always be expressive about what you're grateful for. You should always find new and inventive ways to show gratitude to others. And what I found is, as I'm keeping a list of the things I'm grateful for, it's helping me strengthen my toolkit so that I can then empower and help others and uplift others. So that's the Mind Stone in a nutshell. So with that being said, now that I'm emotionally out of a funk talking about vision, you now hold the stones. Well, you don't physically hold them, but you know what they are, right? But the big question is, but where do I start, right? What do you have to do to start? And I think in order for you to start, you have to understand what your story is. And what I mean by that is, what is it that separates you from everyone else? What is your unique value proposition? What separates you that can't be easily duplicated? What is something that separates you from everybody else on the market? Whether you're looking for a new job, whether you're just trying to do your job better, whether you're trying to be the best parent on the planet, whether you're trying to be the best fur baby mama, whatever you're trying to do, what separates you from everybody else? What makes you different? For me, I can tell you. My wife coined a term. She says, Lee, she says, you're an edutainer. She says, you always try to share things educational, but you always try to find an entertaining way to do it so it sticks. So for me, that's my differentiator. There's nobody else in the world that can do that as good as I can, or at least I believe that. Humility is not my thing. No, but the truth is, it's hard to do this. And it's something that when you understand that, hey, this is one of my talents, that's something that sets you apart. And I think it needs to become part of your story, and it's okay to have it become part of your story. So instead of just going random, I want to give you the 3 keys. So many years ago, a number of years ago, way before COVID, I gave a presentation, a life skills presentation, and it was on the 3 keys to success in life. And it talked about these 3 keys. And the same 3 keys are here. And my promise were that these 3 keys would help you live a better life. They would help you discover what love really means, and that they would help you learn what you could do to make a difference in the world. That was the 3 things I was trying to do. And the 3 keys started with building a firm foundation, having a story to tell, and setting clear and achievable goals. So let's cover each one quickly, because for the sake of time, I don't want to spend too much here. So key 1 is having a solid foundation. You got to have something to believe in. And like I said before, it could be family, it could be faith, it could be anything. You just need to get that foundation in place. And then you need to have an awakening. You need to understand that this is my rock. This is what I do. This is what I live for. And if you have that foundation that's in place and you understand everything about it, then you can move on and you can say, okay, I know what my foundation is. I know what drives me. I know what motivates me. I have a solid foundation. I have a rock. I have something to lean on. I'm excited. And that brings you to step 2. Key 2 is the story to tell. Now, what I can tell you is one of the things that I believe is that there's no such thing as the word coincidence, right? We are all destined through consciousness to meet and engage with people that we do. So I don't think anything's a coincidence. It's a predetermined destiny that things happen. It's predetermined that you were going to be on this call today and that you were going to learn these topics. And I'm totally good with that. And I think it's a good idea, right? We are going to engage and encounter people in different ways, but it's all by design. And I think if we come in with that, we can make a difference. And I remember at one conference I was speaking at, I believe it was in Tampa, I said the line, quote, that it's our responsibility to take the fabric of our story and intertwine it with the fabric of other people's stories to create a beautiful tapestry called life. So when I talk about telling a story, I'm not talking about a single story about an event that happened in your life. I'm talking about, what have you done in the world to make a difference? What would your friends, what would your great-grandchildren, what would someone say about you? Something that you did that left a lasting impact on the world. Would they have a story to tell? Or are you just living life, and not leaving an impact? So I know I said live in the present, but I also want you to leave an impact for others while you're doing so. So it's important for you to understand that one of the keys to success is having a story to tell, having something that people will say, I remember that person because she was, this type of person, or I remember this person because he did these things. And I think that's critical. I think it's incredibly important. The last one is setting an achievable goal. And I think that with this one, the focus becomes not setting, I want you to dream big. I want you to have a big picture, But I want you to have smaller goals that roll into the bigger goal. And the reason why I say that is because I think sometimes when you have small and early wins, it's kind of like organizing a backlog. Small and early wins are important. They increase the feedback loop. They give you a chance to get questions answered and get additional information. And it gives you a notch in your belt. If you want small goals that are easy to achieve, SMART goals that are easy to achieve and understand, go for it. SMART is an acronym. It's a good one. You want to make sure, though, that when you do have results, that you reward yourself and that you recognize success. And even with others. And a lot of times what I say is when things become achievable is when you take your dream and your reality and you let them collide. And the closer you can get your dreams to reality, the bigger that window of what's achievable becomes, right? So I think that sometimes we're afraid to dream. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're going to do this right and you're going to have success and you're going to have good work-life balance, you need to get these things in order. You need to get your house in order. And once you get your house in order, then you can start focusing on the 6 stones and you can really get things done. So the big message to take away, the big ask, find a way to set yourself apart. Find a way to make a difference in the world and in your personal life. Identify your superpower. Go through those 6 stones and say, this is one that I need to work on, or this is one that I'm really good at. That's important. You need to understand. Follow your dream, right? I always use the analogy of a child. When you ask a child, what do they want to be when they grow up? They always have a dream. Now, many children never grow up to be what they thought they were going to be, but it doesn't mean that they don't leverage that dream to propel them to what they've become. So don't ever discount that dream, right? Ask yourself, what do you want to be when you grow up? Even if you're grown up, ask yourself that question. And the big takeaway here is don't let others rule what you're trying to do. I think that one of the things that we've seen as a result of this different work environment is that we often let others control what we're doing. We often let others impact what our decisions are. It's important to take their input, but it shouldn't directly impact our decision unless it's something critical that we need to consider. Outside of that, we control our destiny. We control where we go. And if we're going to have our dreams come true, we need to regain that control, because the truth is, for every one opportunity there is out there, there's close to 1,000 people trying to get it at this point. If you're going to have success and you're going to cross this bridge of work-life balance and you're going to really make it rock and you're going to jam this thing, you need to have dedicated focus and strength. You need to be disciplined and you need to do the things that you need to do to be successful. So I have some conclusions, and then of course I'll take the last 5 minutes or so and open it up for questions if you have any, because I see a couple of comments came through chat. I'll admittedly say I did not read them yet. So first, times have changed and so should we. We can't keep living the same way. If you keep doing the same thing you were doing over and over again, you're going to get the same result every single time if you do the same thing, right? We need to adjust and pivot. COVID wasn't necessarily all a bad thing. I mean, many bad things came with it, but it ushered in a new era for us to learn, for us to grow, for us to adapt, for us to change the way that we behave. And as we're starting to see COVID peel away, it's brilliant. Some of us may never go back to an office, but we need to figure out what we need to do differently in order to still continue to make an impact. And we do that by setting ourselves apart from others. Never, ever, ever stop sharing your talents. If you got a talent, share that talent. Share it to death. Share the crap out of it. People need to see that talent that you have and get excited about it. Apply those 3 keys for success that I discussed earlier. And of course, I had to give homage. The Marvel Universe got it right once again, right? And I know there's times where we wish we had those Infinity Stones so that we can make that snap and get rid of the half of the world that we don't want to have around. Because the truth is, there is evil in the world and there's things that are happening that shouldn't be happening. But if we leverage the learnings that we get from opportunities like this and we make the world a better place, I promise you, there's a larger number of better people and good people than there are people who wish to do bad and ill will. And if we can get together as a group of people and stop putting on blinders and just treat everyone with dignity and respect, the world's going to be a better place. So I do a lot of these presentations, a lot of keynotes, a lot of things privately for companies. If you were interested in engaging and talking about coaching or other workshops, or if you were interested in having us come out and do a private session for you, we'd love to do that. And I know time is the most valuable thing that you have. For those of you who do have to log off, I want to say how much I appreciate your time, because you had a lot of things you could have been doing for this hour, but you chose to spend that hour with me, and that's humbling. So thanks again. Know for all my alumni, I love all of you, and you know what I mean by that. It's without the people who uplift and love others and do things for others to make the world a better place, the world would be a completely different place. So I appreciate you dedicating and coming in and visiting. So we have about 5 minutes left. So I'm going to pull up the question window here in chat and see what we got. Let's see. So it looks like there's some comments about Marvel Universe analogy. Yep. Oh, there's a quote from Yogi Berra, it looks like. If you always do what you always done, you're always going to get what you always got. And that's a good one. There was another quote that was thrown in a chat from Albert Einstein. It says, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, that's the definition of insanity. And I've heard that one before. So thanks for sharing those. But at this point, if I'm going to go ahead and give 1 or 2 more minutes for anybody who wants to throw out an additional question, and we'll go from there. Let's see. How do I get information regarding PDU information for this workshop? A good question, Patricia. So if you'll send an email to training@agiledad.com, so training@agiledad.com, and in a subject line, just put PDU, and that should be enough. You don't have to put anything else, or you can put PDU for a webinar. And everyone on the screen, or everyone in the session, you qualify for 1 PDU, for 1 hour PDU. And I don't know that we have a code set up for it, Patricia, but if not, we'll show you where to plug it in. So either way, you'll get the credit for the webinar. The same is true for Scrum education units for the others. All right, I think that about does it then. I want to thank you again for being here. This has been amazing. Oh, it looks like we got a last minute question. Let's see what we got. Oh, thanks. Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure, Echo. I love it. Sarah, you're one of my favorites. Thank you for being here, Sarah. You're absolutely an amazing person. You uplift others all the time, so thanks for being here. As always, I encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile. If you haven't already subscribed to the Daily Stand-Up Podcast, please do it. It's so incredible. There's so many agile topics out there. Go take care of it. Jose, it was a pleasure. Thank you, my friend. Karen, loved having you here. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of others. Have a great one, everybody. Cheers.